in mind, we have immigration going from east to west. Remember, those are one of those terms that we have to be careful in terms of the sound alerts. The original 13, we settled into the north, middle, and south for different reasons, but the big push is, let's go out west. North Carolina made that claim. Connecticut made that claim. Connecticut made that claim, and that caused real problems for the Articles Confederation. We move into the plains areas, the Gulf down south, Great Lakes up north. We move out, and the whole big theme then becomes manifest destiny, a recurring theme all the way across the country. It doesn't stand alone, though. One of the big issues as we go out west with manifest destiny is how much, or if at all, will we allow slavery to infiltrate into the western frontier. That takes us back to the settlement and the abolitionist question, the sectional question. It gets into a much bigger picture. It's a theme that sometimes the College Board would like you to tie together with some other themes. So you got to look for it. Timeline, 1820s, 1850s, if you're trying to put some things together. Just some of the events that would go there. Jacksonian democracy, the reform movements, the immigration issue, manifest destiny. A lot of background for the Civil War. The northern industrial issue, agricultural South becoming more and more cotton industrialized or cotton oriented. The slavery issue, we've got economic concerns, political concerns, social concerns, constitutional concerns like the 3/5 Compromise. We've got moral issues now raised by the people who are abolitionists who say slavery is a moral wrong. We've got Frederick Jackson Turner, who later, in the late 1890s, about the importance of all this frontier development and the role slavery played there. And remember, Turner said that the frontier experience is what defines us today. Lewis and Clark set off on that Louisiana Purchase. Jefferson kind of put us in that direction when we made that purchase. So there's a lot of things happening all throughout this period of history. A lot of geography. Good stuff. Hey, you know the joke about the geographers, right? You know what's special about a geographer? They know their place. There you go. Oregon. Missionaries head out first. Fur traders. We've got joint occupation with Britain, which is an awkward agreement. It was originally set up, and then when they got 10 years down the road, they didn't know what else to do, so they did it again. And eventually it causes all kinds of issues. The Monroe Doctrine comes into play when we fear that the Russians might be getting involved, so the United States kind of steps it up. James K. Polk comes along in the late 1840s and lays it out as a campaign slogan, 54-40 or fight, we're going to get rid of the British in Oregon. And instead of that, we cut a deal. And the deal is cut where the United States and Canada will draw a boundary line at the 49th parallel, and that is the current boundary line between the United States and Canada. Remember, when we're talking about Oregon, we're talking about the Oregon Territory, not just about that state. So we're looking at a lot of property here, okay? But that's part of the big manifest destiny. And in this regard, it's been accomplished. The United States has now gone coast to coast, but we still have a big gap, someplace called Texas. And the Texans would hate for us to leave that. Okay? Moses and Stephen Austin were invited in by the people of Mexico, try to get this thing going. Once Mexico became free and independent of Spain, the Mexicans became worried that there were so many Texans. They had an immigration problem, too many white faces. So they start putting restrictions on it. And one of the restrictions is that there was going to be no more slavery in Texas. The white settlers were really upset. They had developed an economy based upon having slaves. So we get a set of resistance going on, and it turns ugly. It turns into the War of Independence. Sam Houston will lead people to successful conclusion after we have some setbacks. The Alamo disaster, San Luisito, that's when we fired the first shot. But Houston and the boys will declare the Lone Star Republic, and bingo, we have a country. Mr. President, Andy Jackson, will you let us come into the state? Jackson says no. Can't do it. What we'll do is recognize you. We'll engage in watchful waiting. We'll be good trade partners. But we can't bring you in because it would just blow apart all the sectional problems we have going on in the United States, maybe cause a real problem that could lead to a civil war. So Texas is kind of put on the shelf at the moment. But a lot of presidents pick up that mantle, including then John Tyler, the only president, remember by the way, who has ever been accused of treason, because he's the one who went with the South during the Civil War. At any rate, John Tyler in 1845, his whole life's ambition was to get Texas in. He finally accomplishes that 3 days before he left office. Congress passes the resolution. Bingo, Texas is a state. Mexico says, not on your life. All during that time, from 36 to 45, when Texas has supposedly been a free and independent country, Mexico has said, no, it's just a territory in rebellion. It's still ours. They also claim there's a border dispute between the Nueces River and the Rio Grande River. And that's where we have the issue. President Polk sends Zachary Taylor and the boys, the U.S. military, across the Nueces. War begins. Abraham Lincoln, a young Whig congressman from Illinois making his mark, is enormously frustrated. He says, where were we attacked? Where was the interest of the United States threatened? He demands to know the spot where we were attacked. And he introduces this resolution over and over again. Drives the president crazy. Abraham Lincoln was really annoying. Okay? But nonetheless, it starts to raise an issue. The United States is able to overcome the Mexican government once we send in additional soldiers under the leadership of Winfield Scott, old fuss and feathers. Remember, Zach Taylor is old, rough and ready. And by the time we get it all done, we have a new country. Brand new states. California, which temporarily declared their own freedom and independence as the Bear Flag Republic, is also added in as a U.S. territory. We settle it all up with the Treaty of Guadalupe and Hidalgo. The United States gets this gigantic piece of property. We'll have Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, California, literally the entire south and west of the United States today. Later, we add a little bit of a purchase. We spend millions of dollars for a little thin strip of property to build a railroad, and that'll be the Gadsden Purchase, finishing off the Continental 48. Civil War. Causes. We have socioeconomic causes. Social structures are radically different north and south. Economic systems are radically different. The South feels she has been almost colonized by the North. Certainly it seems to her that it's like a mercantilistic system. The tariff issue has separated them since 1828. Constitutional concerns. The issue of states' rights is paramount, and the South believes that the states are more important than the federal government. The North does not agree. Slavery, the great moral question. We have inadequate leaders now. The old guard who had always put the U.S. first, Henry Clay, Daniel Webster, John C. Calhoun, have now died. We are left with people like Jefferson Davis, James Buchanan, the worst president ever in the history of the United States. Never aspire to his stature. Always try to do better. Okay? Democracy seems to be slipping. Rule of the people. Slavery is often a theme question, and it was last year. Slavery was the DGQ. It went from 1775 to 1820, which was an awkward time, but you never know for sure when they're going to bring it in. I can guarantee, with about 99% certainty, slavery will not be the DGQ this year. But it could certainly be a free response question. So sometimes I'd like to see a progression, and we've laid out some of these things already. We did yesterday about Jamestown. We talked about the 3/5 compromise. We looked at the compromise of 1820. Remember, the compromise of 1850 was to allow California to come in as a free state, but we kept slave trade going in Washington, D.C. We start to introduce this idea of popular sovereignty, where people get the right to vote on the issue. And clearly that's what Kansas and Nebraska was all about, although it turned into bleeding Kansas. The Civil War almost starts there in 1854. John Brown is the leading abolitionist who's kind of nuts and crazy. He got captured as he tried to steal guns at Harper's Ferry, and he got captured by Robert E. Lee. Irony of ironies. Lincoln and Douglas had debated as they were running for the Senate in Illinois in 1858, and Douglas put out the Freeport Doctrine, which again is another reference to popular sovereignty, let the people rule. Abraham Lincoln has a different idea. He says slavery is a moral wrong. Sets the agenda for the firing at Fort Sumter in 1861 April. So if you look at slavery and you're trying to do, man, how do we pull it all together? Maybe this is one of the ways you can do it. I don't know if we'll do a free response question on it, but they certainly